And when I think about it, all I can think of, and you guys know better than I do, it's probably more uncomfortable for me because I don't have kids, but you always see those butt-ass naked kids running around all over in little wingdings, flopping about to and fro. And it seems perfectly normal. Like, there's not a big deal about it. There's no shit's given.
Right. Naked baby.
Welcome, everybody, to the Lionz Den, episode 23. So if you're not from Chicago, you have a couple 2-3. The Bears Saturday Night Live skit is legit. There are definitely people that talk that way.
There are people that talk that way.
So this is episode 23. Again, my name is Eddy.
I'm Brad.
And this is Alex.
So I want to thank everybody. The one of the last ones we put out, we actually had pretty good response to.
Yeah.
It was over 100. So please keep thanking, sharing. Please follow. So
subscribe. Tell your friends.
Yeah, and if there's something that you liked in one video better than you liked on the other, that's super helpful for us. So share that information. You know, if there's something that was a little bit more exciting, whether it be the duration or something we talked about, you know, give us a heads up because we'll put more of that out there.
Definitely. And I want to welcome Alex back. He missed the last couple.
I did. Feels good.
Daryl will be out these back. Next couple. We will be on, what do they call it in the TV world? Hiatus?
Hiatus?
Sure. Hiatus.
I think it is.
Yeah. Fancy.
I'm glad you didn't need us to help you with that.
It'll should only be a week or two, but we'll be right back on after.
Yeah.
So just hang in there throughout that. Today, and I actually did mention him in a couple podcasts ago, might have been the last one. So there's a guy, Erwin McManus, who I absolutely love. Anybody who gets an opportunity, check him out. He definitely has a podcast, has quite a few books out, all fantastic. But just has a very unique way of looking at Christian faith especially, but spirituality in general. He's kind of similar to me. He's kind of delved into a lot of different faiths. But it's been, you know, pretty much Christianity for a long time now, but has a very unique way on looking at different stuff. And we had actually, one of the very, very early episodes talked about a little bit of Genesis and how that was perceived. And he mentioned just an incredible, we were really close to it when we talked about it the last time. You know, we kind of looked at it, the birth of sin being ashamed or shame. He kind of took it to another level, so definitely want to talk about that in today's podcast. So in Genesis, this is 1:27. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them in his image. So, you know, key kind of takeaway from that is we were made in God's image. So we were given everything, you know, Adam and Eve were given paradise. And I thought a really interesting point that he made is we kind of look at Christianity especially. I mean, I guess all religions, that there's all this stuff you can't do. So can't do this, can't do that. Big laundry list of don'ts and very few do's.
Yep.
And when he said it, I was like, shit, that's actually really true. So, you know, pretty much instructions were Adam and Eve, you can, all this shit is yours, whatever you want. You're ruling over everything, every single animal, every single plant, every single fruit, everything that you possibly see. There's just that one thing don't mess with. Literally one thing out of everything they're looking at. Don't mess with.
Just that one tree, don't touch it. Even
if you don't get anything else from this podcast, I think it's really, really important point. As soon as he said it, I was like, I never really looked at it that way. Because, you know, there's right. And we've talked about this a lot. It always seems like there's all these things that we can't do. And, you know, this is a sin, that's a sin. You're going to hell for this, you're going to hell for that. That's bad. You're a horrible person, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, where that really came from, who the hell knows? Because we pretty much had the option of everything but one thing. So we had an endless array of stuff to do other than one. So I don't know how it now kind of flipped that into there's an endless amount of stuff we can't do and one thing we can.
Yeah.
So that in itself was, I think, a really crucial point. And, we could talk about that a little bit. So from your guys' point of view, how do you think that we've kind of, where do you think that came from? Where are we down from all this great stuff to, hey, there's very few things you could do and be okay?
I think it's just human nature, the path of least resistance.
You're about to say least.
Yeah, well,
That's not true.
I think it's...
That's boys' town.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that it's easier to focus on the negative because it's easier to be needing than to be appreciative for what you have. So I think as people, not even a society in general, we look for the things that we don't have and never appreciate the things that we do have, I suppose. Why we do it, I don't know. And I think there's always that lean towards the one thing why can't I have it, actually, so a kind of an off story, but it kind of ties into it. We did an event at work, and it was an event for a group of riders that had a gigantic event at the dealership, thousands of people that came all over the world for it. And we were running deals for just them that day. And when they came in, first pencil, so when we first go over numbers with them, we were showing them that discount. We didn't sell a single bike that day. And the day before, we had sold, I think, 3 or 4 bikes at list. And the moral of the story is if things are just given, you don't appreciate it because there was no work for it. So you don't really appreciate the stuff you have because you've always had it. Where the stuff you can't have, you have a wanting for because there's a desire for, well, why can't I have it? Does that make sense?
I think it makes total sense. The only thing I would wonder then, because I think you're 100% right, is wouldn't the teaching be then you can do all this stuff but that one thing? Or isn't that, I guess that makes everybody want to do that one thing?
Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah, man, it's you always want what you can't have kind of thing, I think, though, as far as to kind of circle back to where there's this, with religion, there's this laundry list of things we can't do. And we've talked about it before. It kind of comes from just generations of
bullshit.
Yeah. You'll go blind if you do that. Really, it was a form of control. I think
that's
parents, elders,
definitely.
Whoever, when they had kids, they kind of used maybe kids being uneducated enough about religion as a form of control. And I think that list kind of stems from that. So that's where, yes, we had everything except for that one. You can have this whole world with all this beautiful stuff. It's all yours to share, except for that one little thing. And that is such a unique take on all that. It is.
Blew my mind.
Yeah, I'm thinking about every aspect of it. Even with church, you think about going to confession. I remember my first time going to confession. The only thing that they taught us about it was all the stuff you're not supposed to do, that you have to confess, that you have to go now talk to somebody about. All these bad things happen if you do it. They never once focused in on hey, by going to confession, it brings you closer to God. In doing so, it gives you a better life by enriching your life. Don't focus in on any of that. Hey, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to have to confess that. So you're right, but it's kind of the culture of the I'm going to scare you straight type of thing.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. It's definitely a control thing.
Yeah.
And I think you're bringing up confession is so, for me, same as being Catholic, you're supposed to go to confession. And I was always like, it's none of your business what I'm doing. Whatever mistakes I'm making are between God and I, and I'll definitely pay penance for that. Definitely, which I would, pray at night.
And it's not like you don't know about it anyway.
Exactly. So why am I telling you all my business? And kind of to Alex's point, it was in my 20s. I was working downtown at the time. There's actually a beautiful church down there. And I was just kind of going through a rough patch, walked in there. It was beautiful. And I happened to see the confessional open. So I was like, maybe I should check it out. You know, let me check, see what this is all about. And I went in there and, you know, did my confession. And I walked out and I felt freaking great.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt incredible. And I really had to think about what was it about that and why is it even important? And I think the important aspect of that is to feel bad in the privacy of your room, to, hey, I really messed up within yourself is one thing, and is definitely important.
Right.
But to put that out there to somebody else is a whole other level of that, really looking at it, really taking ownership of whatever that you did. It has a whole different aspect. It wasn't, and the priest was great. I mean, he went through everything. I didn't feel like because he said you're forgiven, that made any difference than when I was doing it in my room. But the act of vocalizing it and being able to say out loud to a stranger or anybody for that matter, I did this, this, and that was incredibly freeing. And to Alex's point, when I learned about confession,
you don't hear about that.
No, everybody ever talked about that.
No.
Like, why isn't it sold as like, you'll feel lighter, better, you know, you're carrying the weight of this burden, like, release it, you'll feel better. Like, why isn't it sold that way other than like, well, you're just gonna have to go in and tell them all the bad shit you did?
Well, that's the problem with a lot of stuff, is because there's always an agenda to it. So then, you know, people know that if there's a scare tactic and you have, and I'm not, scare maybe is the wrong word, but a scare tactic. Control.
Yeah.
If you have a control tactic and you know it's going to work 80% of the time, well, if you know by bringing 15 kids into a room and going after the emotional side of it, and that's only going to net you 20%, why wouldn't you go with the control aspect? I mean, I know why you shouldn't. We know why you shouldn't. But how many people are going to be able to say, you know, you're always going to go with what's going to work.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what the Lionz Den is about, is kind of talking about coming from the right place, you know, and I think that's why people are so apprehensive about religion, is because it's coming from a place of an agenda instead of a place
100%.
of experience.
Right. And I mean, as we continually talk about, I'm not ever advocating that agenda is disingenuous. I mean, I think they have the best intentions in mind.
I would agree.
I just think that, again, anytime something agenda is control, you're going to eventually, that dam's going to break.
Yeah, it gets muddy.
You're going to get pushback. You're going to start getting questions. And, you know, again, looking at Genesis, it didn't start that way.
Right.
So I think all of this would make a lot more sense if, you know, hey, you can't do any of these things, but you can do this one, and they screwed up one of those million things and not just the one. But that's not the story. I mean, that's not what happened.
No.
You know, according to Genesis, it was you have everything but this one thing. So, one, I thought that was a really interesting takeaway from that, and I think it resonates. I mean, I think it really hits home, because I think a lot of people, when they think of faith, is there's all these things I can't do and very little things I can do.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was ever the intention.
And especially somebody that, you know, that maybe doesn't fully understand faith, they're trying to come to a place where they want to understand it, but what they know, air quotes, know, is that it's, you know, there's all this stuff you can't do, and there's this stuff you have to be ashamed about. So that's kind of the point of where we can kind of get the word out about, you know, and even for me with faith, more of the Catholic side of stuff was always that God is a vengeful God, where the Christian side of stuff was kind of more lighthearted, more forgiving, and that's where I kind of found my path through some religion. So, and I think that's why, because for me it just made more sense as opposed to this just kind of dark list of things we can't do. You know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with that.
And then so, you know, we're in paradise, you know, at Eve comes along and life is good and there's all this stuff we can do. And then the bastard devil shows up. And so with that, so Genesis 3:5, so shows up, is talking to Eve at this point, and what's up with not being able to mess with that one tree, being the bastard that he is. So, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So, what I thought was an interesting take of that wasn't so much the temptation, and that's actually what the bulk of this podcast will be about, was making Eve question that she wasn't already the best she could possibly be. She wasn't already made in the image of God. She wasn't already had everything she could ever need, anything she could ever want. There was something else out there that she needed, and it happened to be this one tree. And I think what's important with that is it's the bastard devil that starts that shit. And then kind of when it continues, so of course she eats, and then Adam eats. I was going to go somewhere with him or leave it alone.
You almost did too.
We'll actually get some comments if I went there, but I won't even joke about it. But so the guy followed the young lady. Not that that ever happens. And I'm just perpetuating the stereotypes already there, but that's okay. So, gets Adam to eat it also. All of a sudden, they look down and they're like, hey, my wang-dang's out. This shouldn't be that way. And Eve is like, yeah, my breasts are flapping about. Let's cover ourselves up. And when I think about it, all I can think of, and you guys know better than I do, it's probably more uncomfortable for me because I don't have kids, but you always see those butt-ass naked kids running around all over and little wang-dangs flopping about to and fro. And it seems perfectly normal. Like there's not a big deal about it. There's no shit's given.
Right. Naked baby.
Right.
Yep.
And then obviously at some point that changes. So at some point, you guys as parents, I don't think you're there yet.
Like if I'm
there yet?
Yeah, no, if I'm running around in my neighborhood, somebody's calling the cops.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure you had to get to that point where, hey, Nathan, put on some underwear.
Right.
Oh, you're asking
your
me
wang-dangs out.
You're asking with Paisley.
I
thought you were asking me. I was like, I don't
I hope you got there a long time ago.
That's what I thought you were asking me. Paisley's 2 years old. She gets, if she wants to be naked.
So she'd still be butt-ass naked. All is good to it.
Yeah.
So how did that go for you, Brad, when you had to explain that he can't have his willy out?
I honestly don't remember, but I think you do. There is a point in that time as you're a parent, you have to be like, hey, man, like, put your clothes on, But is it like an age thing? Is it like an embarrassing? Do they start playing with it? I don't have kids, so I don't.
And I'm super curious because this will help me out a ton because I got this coming up.
I honestly don't.
Nathan doesn't listen to this, by the way. You're really embarrassed.
But
there wasn't like one day where you were like,
nope, that's it. Put on underwear.
Enough.
Was he
Spider-Man
flicking it in the corner or something?
No.
And you're like, oh shit, people are starting to notice.
No, I don't think so. I think it becomes even, because at the time there were like a bunch of neighborhood kids, like everybody kind of hung around. So eventually the naked kid realizes he's the only naked kid.
Right.
Gotcha.
And eventually he's kind of like, well, Tommy over there doesn't, he's got clothes on. Maybe I should keep wearing clothes.
Gotcha. So he just kind of picked it up on his own.
I think so. And it really, I think maybe there were a few times, with both of them, like you kind of get to the point where like, hey, they're cognitive enough to like understand it.
Sure.
But it is funny because like I obviously do service work and I go to people's houses and they have kids and like, you'll ring the doorbell and like there's just like naked kid. Like right
constantly.
Like, what the shit?
Like kids are always butt ass naked.
And they don't care.
I mean, I see it in department stores or they can't wait to rip their clothes off and run around with their wang dang flopping about.
Yeah.
It's like it's a kid thing and it's somewhere. And, obviously, the kids, innocence,
right.
Pure. So why does that become impure? And what I think was interesting is that's kind of what happened as soon as they ate from the tree of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil. He's like, hey, my junk is out. I need to put on some underwears.
Well, I think that's when it becomes for like people too. Like when you know what it is, it's probably time to put it away.
So I guess when you see it as being impure?
Well, when you see it for what it is, when you lose that innocence as a kid.
Gotcha.
So when it no longer becomes like a funny name, like a Wang Dang.
I never gave up that.
I think it. I think it becomes less appropriate for it to be out. I think you know what it's used for. It's probably because you're feeling a certain way, and somebody.
A kid don't know that at 4, 3.
Well, at 4, it's probably okay.
I don't see a lot of butt-ass naked 4-year-olds.
You know what?
But
In
how do
the
you know?
comments down below, you tell us what age.
Yeah, you made your
what-
kid put clothes on.
Yeah, and don't take it down the wrong road either. We're actually curious.
Yeah,
No, I mean, like, really, like, no,
sincere
like,
place.
yes, no, this is really, but yeah, no, but like it is that innocence. It's that loss of innocence. So,
Yeah.
and which is what we're trying to correlate here. So, at what age is there that loss of innocence? And that's what you're trying to say. Like, it's when you can cognitively know, like, well, this is kind of wrong.
Right.
So, but you said your kids just kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
And as a father of a girl dad, I'm not cool with that.
Yeah.
So I was kind of hoping for like age 3, age 4, at like, 2 feet, 10 inches. When does it become?
Right. And that's what I think
Yeah,
is interesting.
I
That's why I
don't
kind of asked with Nathan, is it something that the parent puts that on the kid? Like, hey, that's
Yeah.
wrong. And the kid's like, well, what are you talking about? I'm not doing anything wrong. Or
Yeah,
is
no.
it, cultural? Is it, like
No,
you
I
said, in your
think
case,
it's-
other kids are like,
yeah,
hey,
I think-
dude, put that thing away.
Other kids around, and they're just even, we had the house where people were coming in and out a
Sure.
lot.
Oh, I get it.
So it was, like, hey man, put clothes on. Like, that's not cool.
Right.
So I think enough of those conversations. It's just like, okay, well, I'll wear clothes.
So back to our Genesis story. So they're kind of chilling. They make clothes. And then, God's coming around. Hey, where you guys at? And they're hiding. So we know why they're hiding. They did some shit they weren't supposed to do.
So they're feeling the guilt.
For sure.
They're hiding,
because
Which
now
is an
they
interesting
wanna-
part of the story.
They were just butt naked and they were
Right.
fine with it. And now they want
Right.
to see what's underneath the loincloth because there's loincloth and they can't see it.
Well, so that's the important.
It's like Wizard of Oz.
And it was something I've read Genesis several times. It's not the way I always viewed it. So then I think we did talk about one of the podcasts. It was one of those things that always kind of ticked me off because, all right, so this girl ate the apple and then this idiot followed suit. Now we are all punished for eternal mankind because of these two freaking momos. It was just the dumbest story to me. It used to piss me off every time I listened to it. As I've gotten older and had different perspectives on it and heard especially stuff like, and I want to give all the credit to Erwin McManus, was just a really interesting viewpoint on it. That changed drastically in a lot of ways. But the thing I've always missed on it was, so they're hiding, God's looking for them. Where the hell are you? And Adam kind of comes out, hiding his business. And he says, oh, we were naked. And God, who told you were naked? And it went right over my head. And he knew right then, because then quickly follow up was, you ate of the tree, didn't you? Because you were perfectly fine. Who the hell told you were naked?
Yep.
And when you look at the two things put together of the devil making Eve feel like she's something other, that she's not everything she could ever, or everything she ever needed to be. She was less than.
Right.
That's why we titled this podcast, Who Told You That You're Less Than? And then you kind of add that other part to it. It's that shame again, and that, who told you that was wrong? Who told you? And that's why I think it was interesting with kids that obviously at some point we do that.
Yeah.
And when he was talking about this, he started really kind of going down that path. Who told you? So what guy told you, young lady, that you weren't pretty enough? What guy told you weren't smart enough? What guy told you that you weren't good enough? Well, who told you that you couldn't accomplish this? Who told you that this is all you could ever be? Who told you weren't good enough? Was it a parent? Was it a boyfriend? Was it a girlfriend? And ultimately where he's going with is that's the devil. So that punk ass that's telling you that, including your parents happen to be punk asses, that's the devil.
That's what you should title this.
Punk ass parents?
Yeah, your parents.
Dude, honestly,
we'll get some clicks.
Clickbait would be on point.
And when you really think about that, it's kind of mind-blowing of how often we're guilty of playing that devil's role, of really being that you're kind of the devil's right-hand man by telling people they're not good enough, they can't accomplish this, they're wrong, that's not possible, there's no way you can do this, you could never get there, you could never get here. That's the devil. And when you really think about it, even beyond that, to the basis of the beginning of this conversation, of you have all these possibilities to stay away from that one, and now through so many years with Christianity, you can't do any of this stuff, just kind of stick to this. They're playing that same devil role. I mean, they're the devil in that story. They're the ones saying that you're not good enough, that there aren't enough options. You got to just, why should you test this? This is it. I thought it was really mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, ooh, shit. Never really. And again, we were right there with the guilt, because I think we did talk about the who told you were naked thing in the past, but, and also the role the devil played in it. Because I think we kind of talked about that it was a setup. But what I thought was so interesting in that is, who told you weren't good enough?
Right.
You were already made in God's image.
Right.
You already had everything you could possibly want. Who told you that wasn't enough? And in this story, obviously, was the devil.
And even you had everything you wanted, and you don't even need that one tree, that one thing you can't touch. You don't need it.
Yeah, but there was the doubt dropped in the head that there was something that you'd have a wanting for. There was something that even though you're created in God's image, there's something that God has that you can't have, which is the knowing of true, good and evil. And the only way to find that is, all you gotta do is take a bite of that apple.
Right.
And then you take a bite of the apple, and you didn't ruin humanity, right? You just
opened that Pandora's box.
Lost the innocence.
Yeah, I mean, I think you opened up that kind of like that instant possibility for the devil to, and however you look at the devil, whatever it may be, into your world.
Yeah.
But when I really started thinking about that, how many times do we play that role as human beings? Tell people that can't do this or that. I mean, I've met, I don't know how many girls, shitty boyfriend, you're not good enough, you're only this, you can only do this, you can only do that. I met guys that hearts are broken because, I wasn't good enough for her, or she told me I wasn't shit. And we believe that bullshit. And again, when we look at, and we've been talking about scripture a lot recently, but when they talk about how great of a book it is, and then when other people are like, I don't want to, that's the knowledge in it. I mean, this is really the eye-opener of it. I feel like that was really the essence of what's being talked about. That is, why are you listening to that devil?
Right.
Who the hell are they?
All his books are like that, though.
Brilliant. I mean, Erwin McManus is the shit.
Yeah, he does a really good job of giving you if there was a guy with faith that you were to say, all right, we'll prove this, I'm picking Erwin McManus every time, because he's going to...
First round draft choice, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And if you're not, I'm a huge fan of his, but I'm not a huge fan of sitting down and reading a cover-to-cover book, just because I'm always on the go. His audiobooks are the shit, because it's him reading it.
It's his voice.
And you can hear the inflection in his voice. I mean, it's definitely check him out.
Definitely. I mean, I would say, even for kind of the inspiration for us to do this, he was a big person that I read some years ago, when our friend Bill turned me on to him. I think the first book I've read from him was The Barbarian Way.
Yeah.
It's the one you sent me.
And I was like, whoa, this dude's coming on strong. And he's really coming in from that, what is this really about? What was Jesus really here for? What is he really trying to teach us? What is scripture really there for? What was really the message behind it? And no problem calling out the fact that that's been completely distorted and bastardized.
Yeah.
And like I said, when you look at this of what the devil really threw out there was you're not good enough. You know, how you are, even though you have everything, that's not enough. You need one more thing, which is essentially telling Eve you're not good enough. Hey, you could be like him. You'd be like God. Even though, and that's why I read the first, God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. So it says that shit twice. I didn't add in that line. I mean, that's straight from there. So, I mean, he's making it crystal clear you're made in my image.
Right.
So what more? So you're already godlike.
Right.
Because you came from him. We all came from him. But the bastard devil made them think otherwise. And, hey, you're not good enough. And, yes, the devil could kiss my ass. So I have zero concern. You could come visit me. You could knock on my door. We'll go toe-to-toe. I have zero fear of the devil. F you, devil. You ain't got shit on me. I got God in my corner. You ain't. Come tangle with me anytime you want, partner.
Eddie's got the Jack Black fantasy of doing the rock and roll duel with the devil.
Anytime he wants to go, I'm ready.
Time to tango. I
got Michael, Mary, Jesus, God. I have the slightest bit concerns of calling you the bastard son of a bitch that you are.
I fantasize my interaction to be a little bit more with like the devil went down to Georgia. We both got fiddles and somehow I learned to play it. Yeah.
You might be in trouble because you can't play the fiddle for shit.
I'm not musically inclined at all.
You are not Charles. Is it Charles Daniel?
Yeah,
Charlie Daniel?
Charlie Daniel. Yeah.
I think the other interesting take too, kind of, and obviously we touched on it, but in this reference, the devil comes in a lot of different, I don't want to say pictures, but different people, you know. I've been the devil to somebody.
Sure.
You know? Like, you can't sit here. You can't, you know.
Definitely.
You know what? Like,
We're all guilty of it.
why would you want to do that? Like, you know, you know, and I think that's an important takeaway is to, if you have dreams and hopes and, you know, a path that you want your life to go down, and there is somebody that's chirping in your ear that is always negative and telling you can't do that, when deep down you feel like, well, fuck you, yeah, I can. Like, that person is the devil. Like, that's, like, rid yourself of that person.
Yeah.
You know, gain distance between that person. It could be that boyfriend. It could be a punk ass parent. You know, it could be whoever. You know, like, but I think that's an important kind of lesson too. The devil comes in many different forms. He's not as
100%.
You know, not always depicted as the.
You got to tell the story.
Which one?
The one, for the reason I got my the tattoo.
Get behind me, Satan.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, so we had an incident at work where there was there were some things going on, and I learned that lesson firsthand, to get behind me, Satan. And it's basically, you know, Jesus turned around and said to one of his very, very close followers, you know,
Peter.
Yeah. Get behind me, Satan.
Yeah.
So turns around to Peter, get behind me, Satan. Right? Most people, being Peter, would be like, been with you step for step.
Hey, I'm your boy.
Me, yeah. Get behind me, Satan, because right now in this moment, I literally have it tattooed on my wrist as a reminder that every single day, even the people closest to you, you know, there's sometimes you're going to be tested in every way, by
including
the
people that are closest to you.
Yeah.
That's why I said with parents, same thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of why we opened about talking about how it's become this. And again, a lot of times it's good intention.
Yeah.
Just like for you two as parents, you know, eventually you have that conversation about putting on clothes because good intention.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hey, there's weirdos out there. There's this, there's that. I don't want to get arrested because my kid's naked, whatever it may be. It's with good intention, but I don't think we really think about what message are we sending.
Yeah, the good intention kills the innocence.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So when you have that conversation, you're the devil, buddy. I hate to tell you.
Oh, yeah. I get like 5 more years with Paisley before I'm the devil, like, every day. You know, I know how it works. Yeah. Well, on that note.
But, you know, what I love about faith, what I love about all this, why we have this podcast is when we talk about why this is important, why is it important to even begin to have your heart open to the concept that there is a God, is because of the messaging that's here. Mm-hmm. Is because he loves you, right. Because he created you, because you're made in his image, which means you are capable of everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no one out there that can tell you otherwise. And if, as a human, and, you know, Daryl and I talk about it a lot, when I really look at where my positive self-image came from, in the basis, it's really that. You know, it's not a lot of things that people think that it came from. It's not my appearance. It's not my ability to do this or that, because there's a lot of better looking people out there. There's a lot of people that are more capable at shit than I am. It never really came from that. It really came from knowing that I'm a product of my Father. Mm-hmm. And so are you, which means I'm no better than you and you're no better than me. So if you come in with this devil speak, like we read in Genesis, you ain't shit. Right. Who the hell are you?
Funny how that's looked at as being black and white, right? Like if you think like that, like I would say if people don't know you really well, I would think outside looking in, they would get a very black and white vibe. Mm-hmm. Not in the sense of anything bad, just it's a matter of fact, right?
Right.
Like, well, this person did this because they did it to me. Okay, right. Well, the fact is you did it too. So I think a lot of people don't realize that that's just kind of not necessarily black and white. It's just very matter of fact, right?
I mean, it is black and white. God made you.
Yeah. So, I mean,
the sooner you get there, whatever means that might be, meditation, Buddhism, Muslim, Christianity, Taoism, Hinduism, hiking, fishing, boating. You know, you're in the God zone when you're playing ball, whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. The second that happens for you, life becomes completely different because you understand that you're not alone. Right. You're not lesser than anybody else. You're also not greater than anybody else. 'Cause that happens on both sides. I mean, you can just get souped up too, where you think you are God, and you're coming down off that too. And you can get where you're super negative and realize that you aren't made from God and be depressed from that. But when he kind of went through that, you know, who told you were less than, it resonated because I hear it so much. I see it so much. Mm-hmm. And we're in a society that is preying on that, including in faith. Mm-hmm. You know, like we said in the beginning, there's a lot of faiths that you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And when I used to talk about the Bible studies, I mean, if you said some stuff that Erwin McManus said, which, you know, in the podcast, he said you're creating God's image, you're God-like. Mm-hmm. So even just saying that was heresy. Mm-hmm. I mean, we go back years ago, you get burned up for that shit. But, you know, I mean, that's what's there. Again, he didn't write it. I didn't write it. You know, image of God. Well, what does that mean? You know, you're created like him. Right. You know, in his image. So everything that you want is there. Everything that you want to be capable of is there. So who told you that you weren't? Now, to be clear, that always takes self-introspection. So there's been plenty of times I've called people out on shit. You guys wouldn't know nothing about that because I've never done it to you. But
yeah. So if you go to our TikTok and you see the video of me golfing, there's a reason there's an Adam Sandler theme song, and you should hear the shit I caught about the high socks.
But brutal. High socks, brutal. You know, which we need. Yeah. You know, there has to be that self-introspection of being able to say, where am I at right now? How am I living? And am I being my best self? And if someone who loves, appreciates you is coming from that place, you have to have self-introspection to be able to say, you know what, they're right. I'm not being my best self right now. Right. Or you have to be able to say, you know what, I am. And if they can't accept that to Alex's tattoo, get behind me, devil. You know, I'm doing what I have to do.
Yeah.
Because that person could fall on both sides of those. I mean, there's been plenty of times that I thought what somebody was doing wasn't the best path for them and been wrong. But it always comes from a sincere place.
Right.
You know, so it's none of this is to say you're not supposed to, you know, talk to somebody or make them aware of possible obstacles or best way to get to that path that they want to be on, or if somebody's living foul, to not bring that to their attention.
Right.
That's not what this is about. This is really about that, you know, all of that is there before you. You have all those capabilities before you when you understand that that's how you were created. And it's the devil that's making you think otherwise, whatever you want that devil may be.
For sure.
But go ahead.
No, I agree completely.
Yeah. No, a bit on your take on that is, you know, people can guide you, people can give you constructive criticism, but those people that are always hard in their, I want to say, leaning towards the negative side of everything, those are the people you need to watch out for.
Right.
Definitely.
You know,
I agree with you.
Like
Very good point.
That's really
Nothing ever positive to say.
correct.
Always, you know, always negative,
just
like
down,
you said.
out.
Yeah. Avoid.
100%.
And, you know, I would definitely encapsulate this message with, you know, and who told you were less than?
Right.
And when you're picturing that person, you know, better make sure it's not the devil.
Right.
You know, better make sure that that person's intentions are pure and they're not trying to drag you down in hell with them, you know, using that example.
Right. No, great point.
So thank you, everybody. Again, just to give him a shout again, Erwin McManus, if you've never checked out any of his stuff, I can guarantee you it's going to be well worth your time. It's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah.
A very unique perspective and always extremely positive. So I can guarantee anything you listen to is going to make you feel good, put you in a good mood. But thanks again, everybody, for tuning in.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yep. Thank you, guys.